Did someone actually not like my using the word slut shaming? That was super weird. Of course, I have an interesting subject. I start slut shaming and everyone disappears. Anyways, as I was saying, for anyone who wants to come back and listen, over the past 20 years, the likelihood of women having affairs has increased 40%. Most people who cheat are happy in their marriage. Women are more likely to cheat multiple times. Only 15% of marriages end because of infidelity. Seriously, I mean, does someone think that like I was reported and complained on for talking about sex or women's sexuality? No, I don't. I'm not that person. Most affairs often begin 2-year mark. We could ponder that for a minute. And if any of you watching have any ideas about why that might be, I want to know. And 6 months is the average duration of an affair, and 60% of affairs begin. So why are we talking about this? And why are we talking about this in relation to this amazing living with myself? Yourself. Here's why. You get to watch Paul Rudd, the new and better improved Paul, though I would kind of take both. You get to watch him love with his wife, aka my girlfriend, because all that baggage is gone. Ryan, thank you for coming back. What the fuck happened? All that baggage is gone. If you think about it, what we fight about most as a married couple is not what's going on at the moment. It's that shit that happened at a wedding 4 years ago. It's that made to stop smoking or take out the garbage or pick up milk on the way home, and you always. It is literally the kitchen sinking, that's not psych-wise, that kills us in a marriage. It's that kitchen sinking that makes us forget the person we fell in love with. If you haven't seen this show, I 100% suggest you do, because it's sort of a reminder where and how relationships go. And I don't think relationships go wrong. They just get stale. If your partner brings home I've heard this, like men that bring home flowers every Shabbat to their wives, and that's lovely, but I don't know if you know this, but it's really annoying to have to cut flowers, stick them in a vase, and I wish I could travel to dining room area, because we have like 60 fucking vases that we're never going to use and don't know what to tell you. The time that my husband brought me home flowers, and it meant something, and it wasn't Mother's Day, and it wasn't Valentine's Day, and it wasn't crappy carnations. Actually, it might have been crappy carnations, but in retrospect, it was what I now know was the night before he proposed. I thought he was working late. He had gone to his grandparents' grave. Listen, he's a good Jew, so bear with me on this. He had gone to his grandparents' grave to tell them that he was going to marry and propose to me. And he came home with flowers, and we went out to some Christmas party, holiday party, and the next morning, kind of hungover, Ice Rockefeller Center, he proposed. And those are the flowers I will remember for the rest of my life. The flowers that meant that he saw me. And if you can watch Paul Rudd, Ant-Man and the Wasp, My New Girlfriend, versus the old Paul Rudd, who has gotten used to having this beautiful woman in his life, this beautiful woman who won't leave because it's easier not to, and most women don't. if you can see the underappreciation, the neglect, it's not even a negative, it's not even a neglect, it's just forget. We forget to appreciate our partners, and we forget to show them that and it's kind of amazing and frightening to see this seemingly younger version of Paul Rudd woo out of this wife that, he once wooed all those years ago. It blew me away. It inspired this, and hopefully hopefully you find it as I do. It also made me do some research on why people cheat, because numbers are one thing, and what's behind it is something else. And yes, in my ideal world, I would have someone come on and talk to me about why they cheated. So if any of you out there have cheated, you can write in a little comment, and I'm you, and I will ask questions. Probably one's going to do that, because if you've cheated and you're still married, you don't want your significant other knowing. But I can guarantee you there's only 6 people that listen to my Wednesday rants. I promise you. So I did do some research into it, and Esther Perel, if you haven't read her, you should. She, one of the books she is so well known for is Mating and Captivity. She is kind of open to figuring out if monogamous relationships should be the norm, which is an interesting thought. It's one that I've been toying with on the podcast and in conversation with podcasters. Clarification, not for myself. I'm a jealous beast. Yeah, I'm too much crazy to share with one person. So, but Esther Perel has some interesting thought why people cheat. She said, one of our ideas, and yeah, I take notes. I always do. I'll just go F it. We want our partner to love us, to desire us, and to be interested in us. But we also want from our partners safety and excitement. God, that first date is exciting, isn't it? What was your first date? I mean, my first date was made up of a series of lies where that I love football. I didn't know shit about football. And my husband claimed that his friends getting together to watch the kick of the football, I don't know, Sunday football, the first game. And as it turned out, we were both lying. Football had not yet started, but I did not know. And we ended up walking around the city for hours and hours. And then I took the train home to Port Washington. He was in the city. I, professed my qualities and innocence, and would not, of course, stay over his house. And then we talked on the phone, I don't know, for 6 hours. It was insane. The next night, I believe I announced to one of my best friends that I had met the man I was going to marry. If before then, it was exciting. It was this feeling of safety, but also my legs closed. I also had this thing that I did where I would announce to a man when a date was going well that I did not kiss on a first date. Yeah, it's basically a challenge. It's like gauntlet thrown. Whatever. It worked. I weeded out some of the men who would not have kept me interested for very long. But the problem is what happens over time. We want our partner to love us, to desire us, to be interested in us, but to keep us safe, protect us, keep a roof over our heads. It's a lot, and it's contradictory. And thank God for social media, because I know which one of you couples profess to be madly in love, happily in love, safe and excited, still aroused by the scent of your man. And I'm jealous, and I hope that is the case. But for most people, it's not. We pick partners that remind us of our Our parents, parent or the other, be it the good parent or the bad parent, and fingers crossed it's the good, but it's just as likely bad because it's familiar. Um, Esther Perel also believes that the fact some of us are having sex before marriage kind of ruins it. And she, I think she has a point, but reasons. I think you should have sex before marriage because women, dear Lord, it takes us a long time how to have an orgasm and figure out our body. So yay, sex before marriage. But on the other hand, Pavlov with salivating dogs, and like you get trained to get excited. They got excited when they heard a bell, and then when they saw the scientist's white coat. And I think you should get excited when you see your partner, your spouse. I think there should be that same conditioned response, just a sexual one, salivating one, or both. I'm not judging. But I do fact that now we're having sex before marriage has increased our the tendency to have affairs. Also, women's sexual revolution. Also, women's that, oh my God, this is supposed to end in an orgasm. Not okay. Get off me. I'm sorry. I mean, for some people it does, and for some people that's enough, but for people it isn't. For a lot of people, in the sadness, marriage fails to deliver the love and the passion promised, especially in the long run. And now we're back. And his dating my girlfriend, both of him dating my girlfriend. What happens, love and passion that you have been relying on to good and prosper, as in produce a child, doesn't work immediately? What happens when sex becomes? What happens when you get used to waking up to a beautiful, handsome, efficient, amazing, intelligent, I'm talking about me, woman beside you, and it's no longer impressive? What when you meet someone who appreciates you for who you are, but that baggage? What happens when you meet someone new at work, at perhaps school, on a subway? I don't know where people meet people. At a swingers party, bar, your neighbor's husband. I'm really I feel like I'm at the bottom of my barrel for where people meet people. But what happens when you meet someone and you have a misstep in thought or word or simply understand, and you say, I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. And they say, oh, it's okay, I just read it differently. Can anyone remember the last time that worked in their marriage? It would be weird if it did. Be full of years of resentment, of missteps, of growing together, of learning together, and of sleeping next to the person who knows all your secrets, which is a lot. So affairs can seem, particularly to women, liberating, empowering, and yes, that whole midlife crisis. Thank God for that in the 80s, because then women got to screw people and men got to buy sports cars. I don't know. I'm not into cars. I guess it's the same. I don't know. But somehow all figured out how to, well, we all, but in life as humans, as people looking to survive, we do figure out how to get what we need while still maintaining some sort of stasis. And if you think about it, that's what an affair is. I will also argue perhaps that's what poly is, but How many people in polyamorous relationships chose another asshole in a different body? Unfortunately, that's what we do. So you do if you've been married 5, 10, 15 years, 2 years getting pregnant, 8 years if you loses your job, 20 years and there's no sex, and dear God, sign of the cross thingy. I hope that doesn't happen to us because I do think sex is important. Sex with your spouse and only your spouse is like the Pavlovian response to the coats. You should see your spouse get excited because that's where I get my orgasms. That sounds judgy. I'm really thinking more scientific. So now we get to an interesting question where I put away my notes. It's tough to try to read notes and act normal. How do you save a marriage? How do you avoid it? How do you know when to end a marriage? The questions. Some of them I have the answers for, others I don't. But I feel a little more equipped after watching. Yeah, I'm a little obsessed with Paul Rudd. Fuck off. So I think the way to save a marriage is to think back to the things that you liked at the beginning. What made you pick this person out of the crowd? What made you decide that this person was worth the risk of a second date? I don't have the same boobs or ass or self-confidence as I did back then. Do I want everyone to think I'm beautiful? No. Do I want everyone to think I'm smart? Yeah, I am. But I still want my husband to wake up in the morning and turn to me and, okay, not in the morning, in the morning. But if we manage to do a date night, I want him to remember to appreciate me. And I think he wants the same of me. Not as much about the looks, but about his intellect, and he cares for our children and all the things that were mystifying, activating, and like seductive at the beginning. Tell your spouse now. Notice it. Make a point of noticing it. Make a point of not taking it for granted. Whether it be thanks for folding the laundry or thank you for throttling my child. Not good, by the way. Mandated reporter. Or, hey, thanks for picking up the dry cleaning. I totally would have forgotten. So step one, appreciate your spouse. And if you don't feel you're being appreciated, don't go somewhere else. Tell them. See if they'll listen. Because most of the time we just take things for granted. Step two, and by the way, this is also a step happiness, which, yes, book promo, March 20, 10 Steps Finding Happy, Neurotic Nourishment Podcast, yada, yada. Do new thing, partner. Try new things. I am not talking Kama Sutra, but fine. If you are flexible enough, do that Kama Sutra shit. I'm talking about that date night that my husband and I went to, where we still argue about who was the better painter. It was probably him. Or, I don't know, try to surf. Read a book together, discuss the book. Anything that gets those neurotransmitters firing in your brain is going to improve your relationship, or at least force it to grow and change. Also, trying new things, happy hormones, snappy neurotransmitters. I don't know. I got to think of something better for that. Do new things. Don't go to the same restaurant. Great that that's your spot, but once in a while, go someplace totally different and eat pig's feet, or I don't know. What did my son ask me if I would eat the other day? a scorpion. It was some cooking show, and maybe it might taste like soft shell crab. So compliment your spouse. Try new things. Also, tell your spouse what you're missing. Ask for compliments. Ask for new things. Ask for new date nights. By the way, speaking of date nights, a babysitter is less expensive than divorce. And also, not only a divorce, but then you have to let out and get a trainer and go on Tinder. That sounds exhausting. You married who you married for a reason. You're not going to appreciate them today the way you did 10, 20, 30 years ago. I wish you would. You could. But you can still appreciate them. I like to tell my clients, patients, whatever, never forget someone out there that will appreciate you more. And would probably kill me if I told him that. But Paul Rudd, Living with Yourself, it's a perfect example of that. There is going to be someone out there that will hate you more or will appreciate your spouse more. I don't care if you have 8 kids and 2 mortgages and you just moved and your husband paintings in weird ass places. Not that that would happen to me. Someone out there that will appreciate you more. But there's also someone out there that will appreciate him more. So try to remember the things that you fell in love with in the first place. Try to remember what person stand out. If you're not getting it from your partner, then fucking tell them. Find them. It's tough to forget. We have kids. I mean, if I were to tell you the amount of, I think I spend 70% of my day in a car, and I work 3 minutes from my house, maybe 5. My entire life revolves around my children, and they're my family. But the other important part about that is my marriage. And it's your marriage. Unless you want to be a statistic. And if you do want to be a statistic and you do want to have an affair, message me, let me know, and I will absolutely look up ways to make that happen for you. Not because I support this, but because I think I want to talk about the things that make us uncomfortable. That is, season 2 of the Neurotic Nourishment podcast is starting soon. I am releasing this only, but it will also be part of our Patreon only feed. And for those of you who don't know, Patreon is basically like if I were Da Vinci and you were a rich dude and you were like, how about if you paint my daughter? You pay me to paint it. It's not quite the same, but it's the best I can come up. It's when you pay a small amount of money per month to keep your favorite podcasts, artists, authors, writers in business. By the way, my daughter sings of our episodes, and singing lessons are expensive. I also want to thank those who have listened, A, today, B, to the Neurotic podcast. And I don't really have a C. It has been amazing finding my voice. It has been amazing speaking my mind and seeing what happens next. Maybe nothing, and this may be a flop, and I may be the talk of town and the laugh of the town. But fortunately, we are Facebook groups organized to reprimand those that don't park or directly. I haven't been yet, so I figure I might as well voice my opinion. I want to know what you want to hear about. I want to know what you want to talk about. If you don't listen to Neurotic Nourishment in the upcoming weeks, we have a lot of cool stuff. Becca, I can't believe you're still awake. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up. I actually just did an interview today with one of my new favorite people. She is my best friend. She doesn't know that yet. Don't fucking tell her until I convince her. Her name is Gila Pfeffer, and she is the mom who knew too much. She discusses her breast cancer journey with me. I also have a nutritionist who rocks, and I like nutritionists other than Sharon. And I believe sometime in the next few days, we're going to release the first, the first episode of season 2 of Neurotic Nourishment. I have a dominatrix. It's my friend, so I guess she is kind of my dominatrix. And I just want to talk about things we don't talk about normally. Do it without judgment. I want to do it without restraint, without political correctness, although I have established there's like 2 words I won't say. Ooh, Rebecca, this seems like a good tell you that when I drove the kids home from Hebrew school, I had a list of the worst words, the worst curse words, and I was very unimpressed. So your kid's got to class it up with his, sit down with his words. But if you aren't already watching, watch Paul Rudd and My Girlfriend. If you have a suggestion or please let me know. And if you haven't joined Patreon and you want to make me feel better about talking aimlessly into the air, and you want to hear bonus like this, you should join. It's patreon.com/neurotic nourishment. Also, if you just have a suggestion for something you want me to do or someone you want me to interview, which is I am open to that. And final self pro, because I am tired and I had to spend 2 hours tonight with crying children. This week I am on a bunch of podcasts talking about the upcoming book. I am on so many podcasts to look at it, and that is embarrassment, not bragging. I am on the Unapologetically Me podcast. I was on last week's Yes podcast. I am on just listening to, and I really liked it. The Career Challenges podcast with Kyle. He is fantastic. I love him. If you go on a podcast, let me know. I'll be on a ton more podcasts coming up, because my ultimate message is not about affairs, and it's not about sex, because I don't make any money doing this. Although if you're a therapist and you want to learn how to make more money as a female therapist, then contact me, because that I'm looking to run a webinar on. But my ultimate goal is to talk about destigmatizing mental illness, because I work a lot with suicidal tears, and the worst thing that happens is when they confess to someone who they trust that they are thinking killing themselves, hurting themselves. They have thoughts. They don't want to live. It was bad if they were hit by a car or a truck, or suddenly they just died by magical, mystical, Harry Potter-esque forces. Usually whoever they tell panics, and which makes sense, especially if it's another teen or a parent. I would lose my shit as well. And you call most mental health professionals, and they say, the answer? Okay. They say take them to the hospital immediately to get evaluated. Then hospital, you spend 7 hours in a waiting room where they take away your phone, your belongings, keys, and I guarantee you, unless actively stabbing yourself with a pen, knife, paperclip, or hear voices that are telling you to kill yourself, the hospital sends you home and you feel shame and you feel worse than you did before. I want to use the release of my book on March 20th, 2020 to talk about how to destigmatize mental health. I firmly believe we can keep our children alive if we make it okay. I know a lot of parents don't want to tell the school. They don't want judgment. They don't want Damn it, as a parent, I understand. But as a therapist who talks to your kid after you tell them not to tell anyone, you're shaming them and you're making their depression worse. Not shaming you. This is the culture that we have created out of fear. Fear is healthy if there is something to be afraid of. But let's figure out what and how much the fear is and go from there. So, if you are interested in helping me spread the word, destigmatizing mental illness, please give me a call, send me a text, smoke signals. I'm sure my son has one of those like systems. What are those called? Morse codes. Smart kid. He set everything up in this house. And let's do this together. Thank you guys for watching. This is so far bedtime. And if you have any more thoughts on this or whatnot, follow up and we will add it to the Patreon feed. Thanks so much. Good night.